You are listening to the Nature's Premier Podcast, episode 34. Here on the Nature's Premier Podcast, we talk about everything from bees to babies and sustainable living. Join us while we talk about natural parenting and different ways to live a more sustainable lifestyle for ourselves and our future generations to come. Now let's begin. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Nature's Premier Podcast. I am your host, Brooke Nichols, and I am stoked to bring you another episode today. I do apologize on the delay in last week's episode. Due to the holidays, it's been a little crazy, but we are back on track, and we are going to be uploading 2 episodes weekly starting in January. So definitely buckle up, stay tuned, and check out the new content that we are going to be bringing you guys. Today's episode is sponsored by Nature's Premier Diaper Service, New York's cloth and compostable diaper service, providing families throughout Long Island and New York City with a healthier way to diaper their babies. Check them out at www.naturespremier.com. Now on to the show. On today's episode of the podcast, we are going to be talking about allergies and food sensitivities. There are so many people today dealing with different types of food sensitivities, different allergies, even very young children. And today we're going to be talking about ways that you can spot those signs of your child being allergic to something or even having a sensitivity to something, and some things that you can do to help resolve and ease the condition. Now, our guest today did just that with her son, and she actually used food alone to help the process. So there are many different ways that you can treat something like allergies or something like a food sensitivity or an intolerance. But today we're going to be talking a lot about food, diet changes, and more natural ways to make the transition into a healthier being or healthier, lifestyle. Today's guest is Jessie DuPree. She is a devoted stay-at-home mom to 3 beautiful kids, Wolf, Luna, and Pascal, and she is married to a wonderful man and spends her days chasing her kiddos around, doing parenting activities, trying to feed them a healthy lifestyle, and also reading on her spare time. You can document her fun, chaotic, and sweet life on Instagram at Jessie DuPree. Jessie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been following your journey, and there are a lot of families who deal with allergies that may not even know they're dealing with an allergy problem. So can we just start from the top and you share your story with us today?
Yes, totally. So my firstborn is going to be 5 in January, end of January. And shortly after, I breastfed him a little past a year. And right at about that year mark, whenever he started weaning and, it was less and less just nursing and then more and more like solid foods, he started showing signs of what I now know is food allergies. And what that started out as was a yeast infection in his bottom, just this big rash. I couldn't figure out what was going on. And then it manifested as eczema rash on parts of his body, but it manifested the most on his sweet little face. And so I had this, 14-month-old with a giant rash on his face that I couldn't get to go away. And if you're familiar with eczema, it's dry, it cracks, it bleeds, it's itchy, he's miserable. And so we knew we needed to really take care of, we needed to figure out what was going on with our little boy. So, first approach we did was we just went to see his local pediatrician, and he got put on steroid creams. And we're like, okay, well, that's not the solution because, that's just treating the symptom. And we try to, as a family, with health, approach things with what's actually causing the problem. Let's not just treat the symptom type of mindset. Mm-hmm. We try to keep it balanced, but, at the same time, we really want to fix what's going on if there's a problem. So we then heard of a local naturopath, and that is someone who practices, natural medicine. He's also a chiropractor, so he'll do chiropractic adjustments to help, organ function and things like that. So we took him in, and he found out that he had, at that point, wheat and dairy allergy. Not just gluten, just like anything that had, wheat products in it. So, and then, dairy, milk, cheese, all that. So suddenly, I'd been feeding my baby like little, of course you feel so bad as a parent when you find that out, because I've been feeding him, like slicing up little pieces of cheese for him and crackers and, making him toast and things like that you feed your little baby, here and there. And that is mostly what was causing his issues. So he's about to turn 5. So we've been doing this for about 4 years. We're 4 years into working with food allergies. And then, as we continued we saw some healing from that, and, skin problems turned into digestive problems, and that, goes into potty training, and made that really hard on him, and, hard for me as his potty trainer.
Yeah.
And so we looked a little further, and there are some other things that he just has sensitivities to, soy and corn, and he doesn't do well with high amounts of processed sugar. And so, yeah, he has a pretty restrictive diet right now. And, those things may or may not last forever, but those things aren't necessarily amazing for our bodies anyway.
Right.
So we're trying to just kind of make that like the baseline of what we feed him, and the rest of us, we don't completely cut out wheat and dairy for us, but we do much less of it, I think, than we would have had we not taken this journey of health and wellness and our son's, dietary needs. So
absolutely. And it's interesting that you say that about the dairy, because most people, whether they know it or not, they have some kind of sensitivity towards dairy. Dairy is a huge allergen, and a lot of people, like my sister, had problems digestively for years. I mean, all through childhood, up until she was around 22, until a doctor told her, you have a dairy allergy, and she didn't know.
Wow.
Her whole life she had all of these issues, and it's almost like, I guess they didn't take allergies as serious, maybe, like, years ago. I guess there wasn't as much testing when they were children, because now you're seeing a lot of different types of allergies, with peanut allergies, all sorts of different things, gluten allergies, dairy allergies. So it's really an interesting time, especially with so many children that are having these issues. Now, when you found that your son had the dairy allergy before that, did you think that he was just sick, or that there was just a reaction to something? Like, did you know from the jump that it was an allergy?
I had a feeling, just because I had a very small baseline knowledge of, food allergies and what they could cause. I didn't understand the connection to the gut and the skin as well as I do now, but I learned that in the process. But I grew up with eczema. I still have seasonal eczema. Like when it gets cold outside and dry, I get little, dry patches. So I honestly was like, maybe this is just my fault. Like maybe he just inherited this and he just has it way worse than me. But, eczema is a food allergy problem. We know that now, like, or at least I do, and our family does. And oftentimes it's totally treatable just by, cutting something out of your diet. And so, and when I was a kid, I had it bad, but back then and my mother was a nurse, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And back then and even now, like, I'm so thankful for modern medicine, but a lot of the mindset of like modern or mainstream medicine is not necessarily, connecting like the gut to the skin or something like that. It's more like, oh, well, here's this and that'll make it go away for a certain amount of time. And then, inevitably it's going to come back and you just keep doing that. Sorry, I got on a bit of a rabbit trail.
No, it's true though. It's very true what you say about the gut and skin connection. There's also a gut and mind connection. They say that like we have a second brain in our gut, and in Holland they treat like mental disorders with probiotics, because they believe that treating the gut flora is something that affects your entire body. So we don't really have that mindset here in the States, unless like you're into more holistic, natural type of medicine. I think the consensus is just to treat the issue and not treat the actual cause of it. So that's a really good point. Now, did you find that when you switched to a more dairy-free lifestyle for him, does he have the eczema still? Like, is he having a good time now? Is it better for him, his diet?
Yeah, so much better. Now, realistically speaking, the healing process for him was very slow with it manifesting on his face. He had it still on and off for about a year, but I believe that, it takes the body a little bit of time to get sick, and it takes it a lot longer to heal usually. Our bodies are incredible, and they, were created to heal themselves, and, they're designed for healing, I believe. But
perfect machine.
Oftentimes it takes a lot longer to get well than it sometimes did to get sick, especially when you're dealing with your gut and your digestion and even in the foods that, the healthier foods we try to feed our kiddos and ourselves, there's going to be toxins and things that are going to slow healing, if that makes sense. But I did see, yes, we did see some great healing. It just took some time. He hasn't had it in at least 2 years, probably no longer, 3 years. He hasn't had anything like that, nothing on his skin. And we, like I said, we have run into some digestive issues, since that time. But really, whenever we get really, really strict, family life is crazy. I have 3 small children. Sometimes we mess up and slip up. And when we do, he has an episode every time, and I feel I'm like, I'm so sorry, baby. but when we're doing well, he does so great. He does well, and he feels good, and the boy can eat. So it takes sometimes a lot of brain power and figuring it out. He's really big, and he grows he never stops growing. Aww. So he's hungry all the time. All that to say, it takes a little bit of brain power and work, but we make it work, and he's doing great.
Oh no, that's amazing. And now, when you say there's an allergy and there's a sensitivity, what exactly are the differences? Because I think a lot of people use those words interchangeably, but I'm pretty sure there's a big difference between the two.
Totally. I think really my son has sensitivities. I wouldn't say, because in my mind, like, an allergy is you eat something and you have an allergic reaction.
Right.
So you have some sort of almost immediate response that your body is like, no, I can't even begin to
like a peanut
process
allergy.
This is actually hurting my body. Yes.
Yeah.
A sensitivity or an intolerance is, okay, yeah, you're not going to have like some major reaction, but your body is not processing that food well. So my son was not processing, milk well or cheese well. And because of what it was doing in his gut, it was showing up on his skin, or it'll show up when he has to go to the bathroom and he has, not a good experience doing that. So, yeah, I think that's a huge difference, because I think people think if my kid eats these peanuts, or if my kid eats this piece of, wheat toast, and doesn't have some immediate reaction, he's fine. That's not what that means at all.
Right.
I think it's harder to maybe get the understanding that intolerances can be still damaging and hurtful, especially long term for the body.
Oh, absolutely. And you have 2 camps of parents. You have the parents that are very lucky that don't have to deal with sensitivities and things like that. And then you have parents who have to. Like, my daughter is also dairy sensitive. I've been a vegan for like 16 years. So when I had her, she didn't have the enzyme. She lacks the enzyme to digest dairy. If she has it, she breaks out. It's a very similar situation, but I knew that from the get-go, because I knew that might be an issue when I had my children. So we always kind of had our eye for that. But there are 2 camps of parents, and the ones dealing with it and the ones that are not. And now that we have school systems where children are bringing their own lunch and kids have peanut allergies, there's a lot of upset from the camp that wants to just have their kids bring whatever they want. but they don't understand that. Like my cousin, for example, if she has any peanuts, she will have like a seizure. You know what I mean? Like it's within seconds. You know, she has to carry around an EpiPen. Like it's a very serious situation. So I think there needs to be more education on the topic because, you know, even like residue from peanuts, things like that, she can't be around because she'll have the same reaction. Her body just cannot process it. It is an immediate reaction. But sensitivities need to be respected as well because, you know, you have byproducts of, you know, machines that are, you know, make things with dairy in them. And, you know, that could still affect a sensitive child. So I think it's really important that people know the difference, but also respect the two in you know, both their camps, so to speak.
Yeah, they're both very real in their own right. Absolutely.
Now, what were some of the signs that you picked up when you said the eczema, you said the digestive issues? Were there any signs that you look back to now when you're thinking, oh, that was probably because he had, you know, some kind of sensitivity?
There were some behavior things. My son is like his heart is golden and he's so sweet. He wants to obey, you know, like that's just kind of part of who he is and what his makeup is. And he went through a season of just acting out of character for himself. You know, when it's kids, you're like, am I dealing with a phase? Am I dealing with a real behavior problem? What is happening here? You know?
Yeah, exactly.
And in the middle of that phase, we took him to a holistic doctor in our area. And he said, you know, a lot of this behavior and he wasn't acting out. He was just, it was almost like ADD, like just hyperactive, couldn't focus, wasn't paying attention, was all over the place. I'd ask him to sit still. He couldn't sit still. And he said, a lot of this, what we're seeing right now is because his gut is so unhappy. He, you know, and he talked about which part of the intestine is connected to our minds and behaviors and even what part of the brain it's connected to. And so that was very interesting for me to find out because I always knew, you know, you hear like you have a second brain, like you mentioned before, and it's, you know, it's in your gut. And I guess I didn't make that connection.
Right.
And so finding that out at that appointment, I was like, oh my goodness. And then I'll tell you, we took him back for a follow-up about a month later. And after cutting some more things and, you know, putting him on a few supplements to help kind of clean out what was kind of building up in his system. And the doctor said, I feel like I'm working with a different kid. Like this is a different child than who came in a month ago. So we've definitely seen, you know, the before and after with just behaviors in our son. So,
and this is all from food changing, right? This is not on medication. This is all dietary changes.
Oh yeah.
That's amazing.
Yes.
That's great. And, you know, it's interesting because there are a lot of different things that are happening now and this is pure speculation on my part. I am not a doctor, and I think modern medicine is fantastic, and there's definitely a need for it. But I think it's something to be said when you just change your diet and it changes the person, you know, internally and physically and mentally. You know, there's a lot of children that are being diagnosed with ADHD and they're being diagnosed with, you know, bipolar disorder, depression, but I'm curious what their diet is. And like you mentioned earlier with the sugar is in everything and it's horrible for us. You know what I mean? Like the white sugar is absolutely, and that is so bad for us. And that is in so many different things, even things that are touted as being healthy. So I'm curious how diets are affecting these children that are taking medication, treating the symptom, not treating the actual cause. And, you know, I would love to just see some kind of, you know, study or demographic that is done connecting the diet towards these disorders, because as you know, you're seeing all these allergies pop up, all these different mental disorders in children pop up. And I think diet has a very, very large role to play in it.
Absolutely. I think we're on a good curve. From what I've seen in the last few years, people are becoming more knowledgeable. You know, even maybe not like the gross population, but more and more people are becoming more aware of this and looking into and not thinking that holistic minded type healing isn't, you know, a bunch of hocus pocus
right
anymore. And, you know, I can sit down and have an actual conversation. We have an incredible care provider. You know, medical care provider for my children, and I can sit down and have like an actual conversation with her about, diet and behavior and things like that. So I think we're seeing a good trend as people, have more conversations like this, and people are doing more studies and just really proving that the science behind what we're putting in our bodies and what is coming out, what behaviors we're seeing and what diseases are or are not manifesting because of those things. So,
absolutely,
I feel good about it. I'm feeling positive.
No, that's amazing. And it's true. It's keeping the conversation open. It's putting egos aside, because people who are maybe have been traditionally trained, in the medical field, they may have one type of mindset, but if you, kind of leave it open and you look at the demographic and you look at different behaviors with children and, different areas, and you kind of can see, I think it's very hard to deny that a, whole food approach towards health is something that's very positive and has a very positive effect on many people and their families. Now, for those families who are listening today, are there any kind of takeaways that you would give them, any kind of tips if they think that they may be dealing with a sensitivity or allergy in their own child?
I would say just go find out from someone, go to someone that you trust. Whether that is a medical doctor or someone that's a little more holistic. Of course, I lean towards a little more holistic. I think you're going to get more of a healing from the inside out type of approach. But I would say if you have any, if you're seeing anything that's chronic, that is, chronic bathroom problems with your child, chronic skin irritations, chronic even behaviors. I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was a child and medicated for it for years. And I also had eczema. I really wonder if, as a child, I had some sort of food intolerance and it was causing me, to be that way. So that's a side note.
Yep.
But just saying, if you're seeing something that's chronic in your child, I would say information is power. We suddenly knew where to begin whenever we got the information about our son. We were like, okay, well, now we know. Now we have something that we can do rather than just, let me keep putting this medicine on you, and then in a week it's going to pop up again and you're going to be miserable, and I'm going to be miserable, and I'm going to cry in my bed because at night when I try to sleep because I feel like I've failed you because you're miserable,
Yes. We have mommy guilt for everything that we do. Everything.
Oh, goodness. Tell me about it. That's a whole other podcast, right?
Very true.
Fighting the mom guilt. But so I would just say, don't wait. I don't know.
So an allergy test then is something that you would recommend from the jump if you see any kind of signs, rashes, diaper rashes too. We're part of, we have a diaper service as part of one of our services that we offer at Nature's Premier. We see a lot of families that they say they have chronic rashes. We're playing around with detergents. Then we later find out that they had a dairy allergy or they had some kind of allergy to their formula or whatever it was, but it was actually caused from an allergy. So you would think it would be a diaper, but it's actually inside of them that's causing this reaction. So it's fascinating.
And it's the same for nursing children as well. It's not just kids on solid foods. If you have a baby that's even colic, or rashes or things like that. I had a friend who had a baby that I kid you would not stop crying. They were at their wit's end, and he couldn't have nightshades. She took him in. We're talking like, peppers, things like that. Like nightshades is like a little bit more of an obscure term. Some people may not know what that means, but look it up.
Yeah, for foods, yeah.
Yes. And so, and she cut that, and he was 2 months old. She cut that, and problem solved. So
wow.
Yeah, so interesting, right?
And that's a big problem too. Colic's a big problem with a lot of people. Some people like to say it's the formula that they're having an issue with, but it's we live in a very interesting time where we're exposed to a lot of different toxins, where we are exposed to a lot of different foods that we weren't created from, you know what I mean? So it's like there's a lot of, just to put it lightly, so there's a lot of different things that that our body's dealing with. So I think it behaves in certain ways when put under certain stresses. But that's actually very interesting. Now, is there any other takeaways that you have for families just getting an allergy test? Do you recommend people checking out a naturopath or just going with the type of the type of doctor that they see fit?
Do what you feel most comfortable with. If you haven't looked into a naturopath or holistic healing, I would do some research. Look in your surrounding areas. You're somewhere local that you can go and see someone face to face. I don't, or you can try just eliminating and trying to do it yourself. Like, okay, I'm going to eliminate dairy this month and see if it works or things like that. But that's kind of I love going to someone that has an infinite amount more knowledge than I do. Mm-hmm. And, this is their passion, is seeing people healed and things like that. I highly recommend naturopath, but if that's not something you're comfortable with, then, there are doctors that do allergy testing, and you can go have your child tested and see what their reactions are and things like that. We've actually done that for our son as well. So, yeah.
That's great. No, that's very helpful. Well, this was a very helpful conversation. Now, for those of families who are listening today that want to learn more about your journey and follow you guys, where can they follow you? On Instagram? Do you have a Facebook or?
Yeah, I have both. Jessica DuPree is my Facebook. My Instagram is just at Jessie DuPree, JessieDupree, just my name. And yeah.
Easy enough. And you said your little boy's birthday is coming up.
Yes, end of January.
Oh, well, happy birthday. And thank you so much for coming on to the show. This was such a good conversation, and it really does open up the pathways for those families who may be dealing with allergies, but they really don't know what to look for. I think this is a very, very informative show.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely, Jessie. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. That wraps up our interview with Jessie DuPree. Please do check her out at Jessie DuPree on Instagram. She is a wonderful, dedicated, devoted mother and really is a very big inspiration to many people in the natural parenting community. Thank you so much, Jessie, for coming on to the show. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in to another episode. We really, really appreciate it. If you haven't already, please do rate and subscribe to the podcast so you do not miss our double uploads that are coming in January. We really appreciate your patronage, and if you are looking to collab on a future episode, please do feel free to email us at podcast@naturespremiere.com. We absolutely love hearing from our listeners. Thank you all so much for tuning in again, and until next week, we hope you have a wonderful, stress-free week ahead. Happy holidays, everyone.